Hi, have you ever wondered how to get started in your family genealogy? I'm Cora Naylor, certified coactive coach and emotion co-practitioner. As a coach for empty nesters, one of the things I often hear women looking for is new hobbies. And one of the things that might be fun to do after your kids are grown is to learn more about their families because kids always like learning about their families. And to give us some tips on that today, I've invited Nick Henke to join us. Nick's passion for genealogy began at the age of 10 when she received her first family book, turned hobby when her boys were young after learning computer skills, and in the last 2 years has become a profession. She has been connecting living humans with their ancestors for more than 20 years using online tools and research center archives. She's authored 2 books: Getting Started in Genealogy, a guide for the absolute beginner, and also Organizing and Archiving Your Family History Files, a guide for paper and digital organization. Now helps others fill in the story of their family. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. This is exciting.
Yeah, it's fun. And now, like I said, we've been chatting a little bit about this, and I know one of my sons is interested in doing some family searching. So I think we might actually start this journey. So we're excited.
That's great.
Yeah. So we're a total beginners. We know nothing. So, how do we get started?
I love to say it starts with you because you know all about yourself. So there are a lot of free charts online. I have them on my website as well to download, but basically you can get, it's called a family generation chart, and it has the spots to fill in the blanks. So you start with yourself, your name, your birthday, then you go with your parents, their name, birthdays, death date if one's passed, and then you decide if you want to go dad's branch or mom's branch. And then you go with your grandparents. You can go both ways if you want. I like to focus on one because honestly, once you get into it, there is so much information. So it can get to be confusing if you're doing 2 sides at the same time. But yeah, and then you just decide which branch you want to go and fill in as much information as you can. And that's where when you get stuck, if you don't know anything else, I have like a list of free resources that you can go to. For example, Family Search. It's free. I use it as a guideline because a lot of other people have put the information there. It's sort of a one world tree. And then there are like findagrave.com, which is memorials for people in cemeteries. So you can look up headstones and get information from there. And a lot of the family members are linked together. So there's a lot of avenues you can start with for free to get that going.
Well, I think that's probably a good idea to start with the free stuff and make sure it's something you really want to keep going with. And so how does it work when people are in different countries? I know another lady I talked to one time had said there's some actually free stuff you can get from Stats Canada. So if your family's here, but how does it kind of work? I mean, it seems like such a huge thing.
Yeah, well, so I mean, that's where the internet makes the world small, right? So you can access, yeah, government archives are online. For example, every province in Alberta, most countries have their own genealogy websites. So, for example, if your family is from England, you could Google free genealogy resources for England, and it will come up with a list of things, and even the beginning search part can be a little overwhelming because there is so much information out there. However, there is a lot. Usually, if you can find the place maybe where your grandparents or great grandparents came from, those major cities will have archives as well. So you can phone them if you need them to do lookups for records or anything like that too.
Oh, that's interesting because I know, like I was saying, what my great grandpa was from Hungary. So it'll be interesting to find out some more about him. I never met him. He passed away before I was born, but he
Okay.
did move to Canada, but he was from Hungary originally.
That's great. So
Yeah.
even some Canadian archives could have some information about him. One tip you need to know, which a lot of people don't realize, is that because of Privacy Protection Acts, the digital information out there is basically 75 years. You have to be past 75 years or more for that information to become public, because that needs to protect the family as well. So if your ancestor is not more than 75 years gone, you'll have to phone archives or government places, prove that you're related next of kin to get that information. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Never really thought about that, but yeah, it makes sense. There's
Yeah,
so
so it's quite secure, and that's what I love about it. Like, I think some people sometimes are hesitant to start because it is a lot of personal information. It's a lot of personal stories. It's very intimate, right? And collecting those stories, sometimes you get really, really great stories, and sometimes, there's skeletons in the closet we don't really want to know about. Maybe there's alcoholism that runs through the family, or I found 2 murders throughout our family. So one was a self-defense and one was a victim. But yeah, you never know what you're going to find, but just to have an open mind to it and understand that it is protected. You can't just look up a living person's information and find it. It's not that simple.
And what's the difference? I know some people are doing the DNA testing and also the genealogy. Does that kind of go hand in hand, or are they totally different?
Um, Kind of both.
Yeah.
So the genealogy, you can find the paper trail, the sources like birth, marriage, death records, all of that. DNA is bloodline, and because it's really new, it's constantly evolving. So, for example, I had the DNA test done just to get the experience of it, so I could help people learn about it, and it connected me to over 20,000 people, 480 of which were my fourth cousins or closer. And so I used Ancestry, and it shows me if those people have trees online or if they don't. And then just the other day, which has been about 6 months, it updated, and now I have almost 600 fourth cousins or closer. So as people are doing testing, those numbers grow. And also the location information is really based on the DNA test, not so much statistics and that sort of thing. So it can definitely help you connect yourself to your ancestors, but also living people, which is really fun. It's making reunions a whole lot more fun.
Right.
But it is not necessary. If you don't want to do the DNA test, you can still go back, 5, 6, 7 generations in your tree and find out the stories and information that way as well.
Okay. And do you have that information in your book, or is that something separate for people to?
I did not do anything on DNA in my book. That's a whole other world of study. But I do have friends in those fields I can always refer.
Okay. And what's roughly how much that kind of thing costs to do that?
The DNA?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Ancestry sells the kits for, if you watch for sales, because they go on sale, especially around like Father's Day. They just had
Yeah.
one, Mother's Day, Christmas. So I think, what did I
Okay.
pay? I think I paid $80 for the test.
Okay.
It takes about 3 months to come back because you have to mail it in and then wait for them to do their thing, and then they put the results there. But and then if you're not tech savvy, you want the results, you can have someone like myself. I can take your DNA. Everyone gets their own specific number, and so I can take your number and put it into my Ancestry, and then bring up all the results and manage that profile for you if you aren't sure of how to do the tech side of things.
Awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
that's good to know. Awesome. So how do you know, like, when's a good time to start paying for things, or how do you determine which sites are better? Like, I know Ancestry is one of the ones you see on commercials all the time, but I'm sure there's other ones as well, right?
Right. I would say decide how invested you want to be, because Ancestry, for example, I pay for the full world package, so I get every country, but it's also connected to newspapers.com and fold3.com, which is for the military side, because we do have some ancestors that were in the Civil War and things like that. So that package is $380 a year. If you're only going to dabble in it, maybe, a few hours a month, I would say it's not worth the cost. And that's where someone like me would come into, you can hire me to do lookups for you, which would cost way less than actually paying for a membership. But I would say for the average person, do as much as you can as free as possible because there are so many resources out there. And then when you get to those brick walls, then you can decide, well, do I want to pay someone to help me or do I want to get a subscription? You can also get like Family Tree Maker is one of my favorite programs. It's basically a data entry program. So you can help organize yourself without the monthly subscription cost. You just pay for it once and get it into your computer, and then it holds everything, all your information, and it's easier to find who you're looking for working on that day. And you can link those sources. Eventually, if you ever get an Ancestry subscription, you can link the two together so they sync, which is really fun.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know some of the trees must get pretty convoluted these days as people, have broken families and all that kind of stuff. So
Yes, well, that's a whole other subject. But I learned the other day, I found out I'm going to be a grandma in November, but he's my stepson, even though I consider him my own because I've known him since he was 5. Then I understand the conflict now. Do I put the stepkids in my tree or do I just keep it bloodline? It's all a personal decision. There's no right or wrong answer. I decided to include him and his wife and their kids and end it there just because the bloodline ends, but I still want them in my tree because they've been in my life my whole life, right? So, or their whole life. So, yeah.
awesome. And so, what are maybe some helpful tools that people can use when they're getting started?
Oh, there's so many. It's great. We like the internet is a wonderful thing. So, your cell phone is the first one. You can download apps like Find a Grave, for example. I do volunteer lookups for headstones, so you can look up the cemetery and see if your ancestor is in there. Get the photo, all of that on your phone for free. Another great tool is a scanner, a portable scanner. So let's say you go to visit a family member and the subject of old photos comes up and they all break out. You can start scanning pictures to take home and leave the originals with your family member. Tablet, laptop, always a great idea because it's portable. And if you think of something or you're in the library, you can add it in really fast. A video recorder is fun if you're going to, for example, my grandma just turned 90 on last Friday, and every time I see her, I love to record her voice while she's telling stories. Of course, get permission, but or a video recorder is even better because then you have that and it lasts forever. And then, of course, office supplies, 3-ring binders, filing system to keep your families organized. And I highly recommend acid-free everything that you do. A lot of file folders and things they're not all made the same, and you don't want those original documents to be to fade away or wear away over time. A lot of that, you want to keep it for as long as you possibly can.
Right. And so you could go digital too instead of like
Yes.
I live in a tiny house. I don't have room to have tons of photo
Right.
albums. In fact, I'm in the process of scanning all my family photos just to get rid of the books because I don't have room to store them all.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where Google comes in, which is really great. There's Google Docs, Google Sheets. You can create spreadsheets on your family. You can use Google Docs to create documents, which you can even share with other people. You can invite them in to add their info in. Yeah, there's so many ways. That's why I wrote a book because it's so much information, right? Like once you hear all the ways, it can be overwhelming. But
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm thinking, yeah, it sounds good. And now I'm listening to you going, oh my gosh.
yeah,
They
keep it
get
simple. Like
going step by
go with
step.
what you know, and just everyone's got their own way of organizing too. You might be a numbers person and want to number each family and organize them by numbered family, where I'm a last name person. I go with the head of household last name, and then sort of that way, but I also group them in families by head of household so that I know that if I want to look up my third great aunt, I just go to her father's file and all that family is in there, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, it's fun. And it sounds really interesting. And I know, like I said, a lot of empty nesters are looking for new hobbies after the kids are grown. And this might be a really fun way to get them connected. Kids love looking at pictures when they were growing up and what their parents did and what their grandparents were like. So I think it'd be a really fun way for them to find out some history on their families. Yeah,
Yes.
looking forward to getting started.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to get started, then we can get your books on from your website.
Yep, I have them there for there. I have a digital version, which is less than the paper copy, of course. I think I put it at $10. It's not a lot, but it helps to get you started. And then, yeah, email. There's a contact info there if you want to email me or send me a message with questions.
Great. And everybody can see the email or your website on here, in honor of them.ca. It's underneath our video here. And if you have any other questions, or you want to get started, or maybe you've started it and you're getting overwhelmed, not sure where to go, feel free to reach out to Nick on her website, and I'm sure she'll be able to point you in the right direction or give you a hand doing something. And if you're an empty nester and you want to get some support from other women empty nesters, comment below with a yes, and we'll get you added into my Empty Nest Facebook group. And you'll also get notification of other videos that we'll have coming up. So thanks again, Nick, for being on the show today. Learned a lot, and I'm excited to kind of get started.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right. See you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.